Welcome to the Powercat Podcast, the original K-State sports show. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
I'm not hosting. I told Cole I'm not hosting. Cole, you're up.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in here to the Powercat Postgame Podcast. I'm Cole Carmody. Tim Fitzgerald, publisher of GoPowercat.com, is not hosting, so maybe we need to get a new intro, Fitz. Maybe that's on the agenda for the bye week. Let's get a new intro that says, here's your host, and then we can just cut your name out. K-State, Texas Tech on Saturday. The Red Raiders walk away victorious from Manhattan 43-20, and Fitz, you and I had some really good conversations after the game and in the press box during the game. The 43-20 is the final score, but I think anybody who watched this game walks away knowing that, as I talked to somebody, it was about a score and a half game. Right?
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a half a score, but it was a 9-point game in the fourth quarter, and K-State never really was able to get over the hump, and Texas Tech took advantage of it at the end to kind of inflate the score a little bit. But, man, we'll start there, Fitz. I thought the Red Raiders were really, really good.
They are good. I'm astonished how many people don't understand the context of how good Texas Tech is. I had someone tweet at me, and some of you on Twitter, put down the phone. Oh, my goodness. That's a team that we used to beat by 40. No, it wasn't. Mm-mm. That's a team that compares to Oklahoma and Texas in the heyday of the Big 12. That's a really good team. Here's the perspective I think some of you need that apparently haven't been paying attention to what Texas Tech is doing this season. Yeah, they lost with the backup quarterback on the road at Arizona State, the defending Big 12 champions, and they barely lost. That was the most rushing yards, including in that game, that Tech has given up this season. Kansas State just had the most rushing yards they've surrendered this year. The big part was running the quarterback. Probably needed to do it some more, but he's kind of valuable. So I kind of get why they got cautious. And also it was the second most yards they've given up. If you told me K-State would have 3 turnovers going into the fourth quarter and they would still be in a game, I would have said you're crazy. So for everything K-State did wrong, Cole, I thought K-State did enough right to stick around. And then they just had to kind of press at the end, and it led to the 2 more turnovers, right. And it made everything look much worse than it was. But I know it's not good to lose. I understand that, people. But I'm going to say this so you understand. Even if K-State had fulfilled its promise this year, I don't think it would have been as good as that team. It still would have been an upset for them to win. The advantage of having $25+ million to spend on portal kids is notable.
Yep.
Now we can get into that later, but that was a really good team because they bought it and there's nothing wrong with it.
Yep.
It's all legal. The best teams have always been buying players, but now it's evened out where everyone can do it. And Tech's doing it. I think that's good for the Big 12. That was a frustrating day for a K-State fan, but that is what really good teams do to you. And that's a really good team.
They were suffocating. I mean, that is kind of the best way that I can describe it, Fitz, is it felt like watching that game, K-State was right there, right? They had to make one play, and that game, they were going to get right back into that game. You know, you think back to the start of the second half, and shout out to Jacob Rodriguez. Like, I knew this kid is really good, but for as good as those edge rushers are for Texas Tech, that middle linebacker, I don't know where he's going to get drafted in the NFL, but he's going to be a star because he is legit and single-handedly disrupted that game. And, you know, you always want to say don't fumble the football, right? Like, hang on to the ball. But when you have a guy who's literally known for punching the ball out, at some point you just have to kind of tip your hat. Like, Jace Brown, okay, catch the ball. That's a fumble that you can avoid. Garrett Oakley, you know what? You just got beat by a guy who is known for punching the ball out, and that's what he did. On that same hand, if K-State doesn't fumble the ball as much as they do, if they find a way to extend some of those drives and even just flip the field position a little bit, this game looks so much different going into the fourth quarter because They're not having to play catch up. That's when Texas Tech is really good, is when you have to play catch up and you're constantly behind the 8 ball. And so for as bad as a lot of folks think K-State played, I agree, Fitz, you have to give them credit for hanging in there, because we've seen, teams just completely fold against Texas Tech. And they didn't fold. The final score obviously is not good, but there is a lot to look at and digest in this game, and that's what we're going to do the next 2 weeks. But it was just a fascinating game to watch.
It was a frustrating game. It was. Could K-State won that game? Yeah. But I also picked Tech to win by 10 points. So that was pretty much what this game was. I thought Tech would win by 10 points if K-State played pretty well. The only way I saw K-State winning was just an incredible performance that hit on a lot of notes, including Avery Johnson running wild and commanding this game. None of that really happened, and yet they were in it to a degree. Now, the one thing I've seen from a fan that I agree with, you and I had this long discussion about going for 2 or not going for 2.
Mm-hmm.
You're down by 15. You're going to have to go for 2 if you score 2 touchdowns. I would not have done it on the first one.
Me neither. Yeah.
That was real. Honestly, that's really my only major grievance in the game was if you don't go, if you just kick it, it's an 8-point game. Tech still has the pressure on them that it's a 1-score game. That dictates how they call plays and what they do. When it's 9, they're a little more relaxed. They've got some wiggle room. So that was my only real complaint. I didn't think the play calling was bad. I thought no plays work very well against a defense that good.
Yeah.
It's 2 NFL guys. I said this on the Power Talk too. They might be the best 2 defenders in the entire conference on the same team. I remind me never to get in a bar fight with Jacob Rodriguez. First of all, he's a badass. Second of all, he's elite at punching balls. So you don't want to mess with him in any circumstance. And other people are upset. Didn't they practice that? How do you practice?
Yeah.
You can practice. They do it all the time to protect the ball against getting punched out. But the guys made a science of it. You can't replicate that until it happens to you. Yeah, they caught Oakley off guard. I'm hearing that neither one of Jace's fumbles were actually fumbles. One was ruled, but the other one wasn't even looked at.
Right.
So I don't know. It was a weird day because K-State didn't play that well, and yet was in it. They kept finding a way, and I'm gonna try to find some positives here because all of you are just seeing the negatives. If this game had happened a month ago and they had 3 turnovers, they would have fallen apart and lost by 45 points.
Yep.
And they didn't really come apart until that last sequence in which they had the back-to-back turnovers. I know this was a missed opportunity because K-State would have legitimately been in the run for the Big 12 title game. Now they're not. But it also, there's some elements to this that are really good for the Big 12, and I know K-Staters don't want to hear that, but we can get into that too eventually if we want.
I mean, I look at it like this, Fitz. The odds of you being able to win this game and then sustain that, against Oklahoma State, you should take care of business. But then going on the road to Utah, who we're about to watch here in the next 15, 20 minutes after the end of the show, like that's a crazy environment at night. That's going to be a really good team. But the odds of you being able to run the table anyway were slim. Obviously, this was a really important game for the program, but I don't walk out of this game thinking much different about the status of where this program is right now compared to where it was, just 4 hours ago. And there's a lot of people on here that are talking about the offense, Fitz, and I kind of want to get into that. I'm going to put a comment up here from our friend Josh. He says it's the offensive line, and I'm interested to kind of hear what you think about that. I don't necessarily disagree, Fitz, but again, K-Staters don't want to hear this either. Texas Tech has done what they did to K-State to every single team that they've played, even Arizona State. They did that only worse. And K-State, did they run the ball as effectively as we've seen them do it in the past? No, but you said at the top of the show, They ran the ball better than any other opponent has against Texas Tech. I believe Avery Johnson got sacked one time. And sure, he's running around for his life. He's not making, great plays when he's on the run. But that really wasn't until the end of the game when they could pin their ears back and go get him. I thought that the offensive line did a fine job. They didn't do a great job. It's about what I expected. And at the end of the day, K-State didn't make enough plays to win. But I'm not putting the loss on the offense. I'm not putting the loss on the offensive line. I think you just got beat today.
Yeah, you know what? The offensive line's been an issue all year, right? I mean, we've known that.
Yep.
They've gotten better. I thought they actually did better than I thought they would.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they would get absolutely dominated and embarrassed. I don't think for the most part they did. There was a few plays, sure. But being able to run the ball for 100-plus yards actually surprised me. They needed to do that. But yeah, you're in the fourth quarter, you're down by 9, you got the ball. There's plenty of clock. You're in the game. Now, did you need to make a big play? Yeah. Did you then need to get the ball back to make another play? Yeah. But that's tangible.
Right.
It didn't play out that way, but it was tangible. So, it was frustrating to watch because they couldn't quite get there. They couldn't quite cash in all the opportunities. And also the officiating was horrendous. Not in one way or the other particularly, but it was so bad. Even I'm told even Mike Pereira on Fox was like, I give up. I mean, it was atrocious.
It's telling when Chris Kleiman after the game gets asked a question about, was it the end of the half? They should have been assessed to delay a game, by the way. That you're not allowed to finish the kick after a timeout's been called. It's delayed. It should be a 5-yard penalty delay of game. And it was obvious that they completely missed that. And I think it was Kellis Robinette asked him, a question about that. And he's like, I don't want to go there. And good for him. I mean, you don't really typically hear him say that. He's like, I'm not answering that. That's not a Chris Kleiman answer, but that's not the reason K-State lost. But, it was definitely something to look at. I also want to ask you about the running back situation, Fitz, because for full disclosure, we're doing this because we wanted to lead it up into the late night game, but I had time to drive from Manhattan back to Kansas City. And I'm sitting here thinking about the layout of the running back room. And obviously, you go into a season, you expect to have your number one weapon on offense, and that's Dylan Edwards. And it's the coach's responsibilities to adapt that game plan. But I think this is a game where if you would have had Dylan Edwards, you would have been able to do some things a little bit differently. I didn't think Joe did a bad job, but when you don't have that speed back there to match the speed of the defense, it really showed. And Joe Jackson is a downhill runner, but he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that lightning to complement his thunder. And I think that, if you had Dylan Edwards in a game like this, or even just a different kind of threat, this is where you miss a guy like Dylan Edwards when you're going against these really fast defenses.
Yeah. I see a lot of people talking about Dylan Edwards. Folks, you got to move on.
Yep.
I mean, he's either much injured than anyone else understands, or he's just done. They literally won't talk about him. I didn't see him if someone saw him on the sidelines, drop that in there, because we're like right above him. It's hard to see.
I think I saw him, but we think we may have saw him, but you couldn't really tell.
Yeah, it's hard for us to tell. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe he'll come back for the final 3. It wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I liked how Coach started talking about imaging and MRIs and basically said, we can't see anything. I mean,
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on, honestly. And you got to quit pining for the ex who doesn't love you anymore. I mean, it's just the way it is now. It's when you're going with the portal, sometimes it hits, sometimes it misses, and that one hasn't worked out. But they've got to get better at running back. I know K-State doesn't like to spend money in the portal. They like to spend it on retention. They're going to have to find a running back.
Yep.
Not a bad, not a roster guy, not another, he was good in the MAC and let's bring him in, and you got to go find a guy.
Especially when your whole entire offense is catered around that position, right? Like it's been like that at K-State. The running back position at K-State is so important, and it has been for decades. But, when you have Avery Johnson, and we saw the kind of weapon he can be with his legs, and I'm happy you brought that up at the beginning of the show. He's so valuable, right? He's incredibly valuable. But these are the kinds of games where you expect to see him, let it rip against a really good team. He used his legs. The final stats for Avery rushing the football, he was the leading rusher, 15 carries for 88 yards. And we know Chris Kleiman doesn't like to really run him that much, but I thought I saw a lot of growth out of Avery today. And the design runs were great. But to me, what was even more impressive was his ability to feel in the pocket and understand, okay, now it's time where I can step up and scramble. We've seen him step up and throw, but his ability to step up and scramble was really good. What got him in trouble, Fitz, was when he decided to retreat. He decides to retreat and then runs to the sideline. There's nothing there. You got to credit Texas Tech's defense for a lot of that, but overall, I don't think Avery played the game that he obviously anticipated. That was the best defense K-State's seen, and it really showed because they were hitting on all cylinders. And offensively, it's hard to beat a team when they execute perfectly defensively.
They're so good defensively. I knew they were going to be good. I'd only watched them in stretches, and they just absolutely just come at you.
Yep.
They come at you. And I thought the offensive line did a fairly good job. I mean, this is defense that's sacking quarterbacks on the regular, and Avery plays a big role in that, being able to get away. But yeah, when Avery starts going the wrong direction, it's bad news. That's true for almost any quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And there were still some opportunities to tuck it and run and pick up some yardage. He needs to take that instead of gambling on a pass downfield. Just take the yards, man. Unless this is it. You got to make a play. Just take the yards. I know that's micromanaging the kid. And I thought for the most part, he did what he needed to do. It just, his passing numbers weren't great, but he was throwing under pressure, throwing into double coverage. Yeah, it was tough to watch. But let me touch on this. What Tech has done is really good for college football because it sends a notice to the Big Ten and SEC. Yeah, you guys get all the TV money, but if you've got a donor or two, you can compete. Everything's changed now.
Yep.
And that's good for the Big 12. It's good if Texas Tech, which I think will beat BYU.
Me too.
If Texas Tech does some damage in the playoff, gets into the Final Four, gets the championship. That's really what the Big 12 needs from them is to add some new context to what the conference is about. But I believe they're clearly the best team in the conference, despite what the standings say right now because of that loss. I see people comparing what K-State did against Tech as opposed to what KU did. I'm like, KU spent most of the game against the backup quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, because Baron Morton didn't even play that game.
Yeah, I mean, I think he started and got injured.
Right.
And that's when KU scored the 17 points.
Correct. Yep.
And then eventually Hammond came in and got it going again. They're just not as good without Baron Morton. And he's not awesome.
No.
He doesn't have to be.
Nope.
He just puts the ball out there for guys to make plays. He's got an adequate running game. And the defense is going to put them in advantageous situations.
You know who he reminds me of?
Like what K-State played back in the day.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It reminds me of a K-State team who had quarterbacks who just didn't make any mistakes. And another guy who, at the top of my mind, he reminds me of Alex Smith, Fitz, because, the game manager who just doesn't screw up. Outside of that first interception he had, which still, watch the replay. I don't know who he's throwing that ball to. When Austin Romaine, by the way, quick shout out to Austin Romaine. I thought he played a great game. with one hand. I mean, clearly responding from last week. But Barrett Morton was what this team needed, especially Fitz, when you look at the rushing stats. These are crazy. I didn't realize that this is what it was. So Texas Tech, we talked about going into the game, they averaged 200 rushing yards a game. K-State held them under that. They held them to 187 yards. They ran the ball 44 times. That's 4 yards a pop. The fact that they ran the ball 44 times and didn't get to 200 rushing yards, I mean, that's a shot. That's a credit to K-State's defense. I thought, you mix in some big runs there from Texas Tech, but K-State's ability to stop the run, I thought, was really important. You look at Dickey's line, ran the ball 21 times, Fitz. He didn't even get 70 yards. Now, obviously, Williams came in 17 for 135. That was what really gave K-State trouble, but I thought overall, K-State did a pretty good job defending the run. It's just when you're on the field for so long, it's almost impossible to win the game. And it's just different than Army, right? It's a different kind of game than Army because you're on the field and you're just getting ran into play after play after play. You don't know what's coming with Texas Tech, but they didn't have very good field position typically, and they were on the field a lot. And you could tell at the end they just kind of broke down.
Yep, that is exactly right. They were out there. What the time of possession was pretty telling in this game. It was I can never find stuff when I need to. Cole, I'm not finding it.
33-26.
Yeah, I mean,
and at the end, K-State had the ball and took off like 2 or 3 minutes just by running the ball down three scores.
Yeah, disappointing game all around for Kansas State. And it drops them to 4-5 overall, 3-3 in the conference. They still have an opportunity to get to 6 wins. I know a lot of you don't care about that, but it's really important. You really are worried about the future of the program. Firing a coach doesn't help you. Nobody's getting fired after one season of being less than what we expect.
Let's get into that because that's exactly where I want to go next.
I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, this season hasn't gone as planned. That happens in life. I know you're not used to it because Bill Snyder was a master. And I don't think some of you appreciate what a master he was at winning the games you're supposed to win. He made it look pedestrian, and it's not. But this has been a disappointing season for all involved at Kansas State. But unless they lose to Oklahoma State or Colorado, they are not only going to go to a bowl game, but have a winning record in the Big 12.
Yeah.
That's what you fire a coach over? Now, if this is a downward trend, okay. But I'm not even going to accept that it's a downward trend based on bad coaching. K-Staters, you need to understand this. This game is now about money, about buying players with NIL money. There's ways you can keep up, try to tread water, but at the end of the day, unless you're having a miracle run season, which could happen, you don't stand a chance in the big picture. You just don't. You're not going to get in the playoff and do damage because almost everyone in that playoff will have purchased rosters. It's the world in which we are. Does it suck? Yeah. Do we want college football back? Yeah. But we also need to respect that the players should have some rights here. They should be allowed to make money. It's just gone all to hell because every time the NCAA tries to do anything, the courts overrule it. There's no one that could have fixed it or done it. The only way that anything's going to change is if Congress gets involved.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a sentence you don't really typically want to say.
And we know how long that takes.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. They're not even talking to each other. So, yeah, I look, it's going to be a tough road for Kansas State football in the near future unless someone just go win the $1 billion lottery.
Yeah.
It's crazy where we're at, but it is possible. I think Kansas State's done a good job of managing its NIL and focusing it on retention. Maybe some of the players have fallen short of where we thought they would be. Jace Brown was awful today. It was awful. and yet they're still in it. So they're going to have to find a way to go retool the roster. I'm sure they'll have some transfers. I'm sure they'll have to bring some guys in. But you always have a new chance the next year now because you can reform your roster in any way you feel you need to. I would not hire whoever was in charge of Oklahoma State's portal shopping to be involved.
No.
Because they put together a uniquely awful team.
Somebody put a comment on here. Where is it at? Talking about well, Chris Kleiman hasn't won at Boone Pickens Stadium in Stillwater. But if Chris Kleiman loses this game against Oklahoma State in 2 weeks, you're going to have even bigger issues. Here's where I'm at with this, Fitz, because again, this is another thing. I drive in silence after games, so I can just collect my thoughts. I'm kind of to this point, right? Like, if you want Chris Kleiman fired, you're not going to fire him right now, right? So just take that idea and throw it out. But I feel like there's two camps, and I hate even acknowledging this, but I've seen it on our message boards, I've seen it on Twitter, I've seen it in the YouTube comments tonight, right? The reason why people want Chris Kleiman fired is because they want Colin Klein as the next head coach. That is the sentiment, right? And so if I would just say this to you folks out there who want that to have happen. Understand that if that's what you want, that is not a foregone conclusion. Just because you move on from Chris Kleiman does not mean that Colin Klein will be your next head coach. And so do you really want to roll the dice? Do you really want to say, hey, coach, thank you for everything you've done, but we're gonna move on? And then just have this intention of trying to bring him back when you don't even know if that's something that he's interested in at this stage in his career. Do I think he would take it? Sure. But there's so many logistics with that. And I just feel like it's one of those things, Fitz, where you look at what you have and then you look at what somebody else has and you want what somebody else has. This has nothing to do with getting Colin Klein back as head coach as much as it does. Oh, he is coaching a team that's number 3 in the country and they're really good. And so that means that we had him here and we want him to come back. That's all that it is. And it's not going to happen. Like, it's not going to happen.
Well, if Kansas State had an opening, my suspicion is right now Colin Klein wouldn't take the job. Folks, Colin Klein's in line to be an SEC head coach within a year. There's talk maybe it's going to happen this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to stand pat. He's going to pull a Venables and stay until the right offer's made. And unfortunately for K-State, like Venables, that may not be Kansas State. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll say, I don't want to coach at those highest levels and maximize my career and maybe go to the NFL. I want to go back to Kansas State and raise my family and do what Bill Snyder did. Maybe it will be, but Colin's a competitive guy. I think he's going to take the best career opportunity for him. That may not be the feel-good opportunity. So I'm getting annoyed by this. A lot of you seem to be under the belief that if you fire Chris Kleiman, Colin Klein will come running. And I think he's going to be very measured in his approach, just like he was when he took a job. He almost went to Notre Dame and decided it wasn't right. And then he waited and A&M came along and decided that was right. And from everything I'm hearing, they love it there. So, yeah, they're playing at the highest level right now. They're really good. And he's doing a good job. But you know what I hear from A&M fans? Complaints about their offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
You know what I remember when Colin Klein was offensive coordinator at Kansas State? Complaints about the offensive coordinator.
And quarterback coach. Let's not forget there were folks who said that Colin Klein couldn't develop quarterbacks. I still remember one of my first podcasts I ever did. There was a question that was about that from Nick. How would K-State look with Klein as the OC? Probably better than 4-5. Maybe. I mean, like, maybe. I think Matt Wells has been fine the last half, 3 or 4 games. I think he's been fine, but I mean, there's no denying that start has really kind of hindered where this team could be. The reality of the situation is this: K-State lost probably 3 of those 4 games. I'm not really counting Iowa State because that could have been a 10-point game, right? There was a touchdown called back, I believe, or he went down at the 1-yard line right at the end of the game. They could easily have won 3 of those 4 games, and this season would be looking completely different. It still wouldn't be meeting a lot of fans' expectations, but maybe that's what we're really talking about. I mean, you look at what Texas Tech did today. You've seen what BYU has done. I'm not sure that K-State is in that top tier right now. And will they get into that top tier at some point? Potentially, but I don't think that would have happened this year, even if they would have won some of those games. They don't have the guys to compete with the Texas Techs on a consistent basis right now. They just don't. Like, that's just the reality. And so was it our fault for saying that this team could win a Big 12 championship? Sure. I'll wear some of that, but I don't think it was too crazy because if you look at the games that they should have won, they would still be in that conversation and competing for a Big 12 championship. Right. They're just not in that upper tier like maybe we thought that they would be at the beginning part of the season.
I think there's been some things here I didn't fully grasp before the start of the season. I knew they were doing a 4-man front for Iowa State. I knew that for a long time. I didn't realize it was a move for the entire season. They're gotten better with it, but they're still not good enough. How many defensive tackles were on official visits today?
Well, I don't know about young high school kids. I know there was one who is a senior this year, but there were some other younger ones. I think
there was 3 or 4. Yeah.
They definitely, yeah. I mean, they're just trying, grasping at straws at that position right
They
now.
have to build that up. They're playing defensive ends at defensive tackle, and it doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't. It's been a problem. So that was unexpected. Dylan Edwards being hurt / unavailable.
Yeah.
As hurt. And they just haven't performed as well. We don't get to go to practice very often. What we see is pretty nominal. So we have to rely on what we're told by coaches and staffers and stuff. And everyone's raving about the defensive ends. Now, Toby Usansami being injured right now is not good, but I don't think the ends have been as good as I thought they'd be.
They're nothing like the guys we saw today.
No.
That's for sure.
No, it's going to be an important offseason. And a big part of that will be having the bowl prep and staying in that cycle of rolling from bowl game into off season, into spring, into summer, into fall. It's a cadence that all good programs have to have. So being able to retain that will be huge. I'm curious to see what the fallout in terms of roster and departures and the portal and all that will be, but that's a concern for another day. Now, overall, I thought Kansas State was mediocre at best today, and they hung around. But until they made that next play, and maybe that next play would even have been the 2-point conversion.
Yeah, could have been.
They weren't going to close us out. If they could have gotten the ball back down 9 and made that next play, Avery breaks a run, Jace gets behind covered something, and they get it down to 2 points. Okay. I'm buying. They might do it. They just couldn't get that next play, that next thing. And they were hanging on for dear life, and eventually they lost control of the game at the end. So be it. Onward to off week, and then get ready for Oklahoma State. If they lose at Oklahoma State, I'm going to do the post-game podcast just drinking heavily.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to take questions. I'm not going to talk about the game. It'll just be me drinking on camera for 30 minutes, taking shots.
Gundy would be proud.
It would be something unique.
You should have him on. If you're going to do that, you should invite Gundy.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be kind of interesting.
I think going forward, as we start to wrap this up, going forward, if you're a fan, like I hate to even say this, Fitz, but I literally have seen stuff out there where people have said, "Good, I'm glad they lost. That means they can, they're one game closer to making a change." If that's your attitude, I'm just gonna say it. You shouldn't watch the games. Like, if that's your attitude, then don't even watch the games, right? Like, I hate telling people how to fan. This is the one instance where I will say, that does nobody good, because the kids get on the Twitter machine. They see it. Other fans see it, right? Like it accomplishes nothing. But I think there is still a lot to play for this group. And I think they can learn a lot from this game today. And you look at the remaining schedule, right? We talked about Oklahoma State. You still have to go to Utah. I'm interested to see how that game looks tonight. And then you end the year with Colorado, who Fitz as of this moment is losing 52-14 at home to Arizona. By the way, there was a Kansas State commit who's on his official visit to Colorado today. That's probably not.
Why would anyone be looking at Colorado right now?
His dad went to school there. I'll give him
that. That makes sense. But I mean, they're going to have a coaching change.
JJ Dunnigan also on his official visit to Colorado this evening, down 52-14. Either way, two very winnable games, but they also have a really big opportunity at Utah. And so how this group responds, how they come back after this game is going to tell me a lot about where Chris Kleiman is, right? That's the big story here, is how does he get his team ready to finish the season? Because in the post game, a lot of people have been in our YouTube comments all over him. What's he supposed to? He's not yelling. He's not cussing. First of all, it's not Chris Kleiman's style. But he wants to keep this group together because they're still playing for something. And as much as that sucks, is everybody inside that program will tell you this has been a disappointing season. There's not a single person who will tell you that it isn't a disappointing season. But they have enough pride, and I think the guys inside of that locker room have enough pride to just come back out and finish the season on a high note and really try and get into that bowl prep. And if you're going to leave, then they're not going to play in the bowl. It's pretty simple. And you'll see what you have as a head start for next season. But did today suck? Sure, it did. But my overall concerns now compared to, 5 hours ago, 6 hours ago, it's about the same, Fitz. It really is.
Yeah, I want to see what they can do. If they can win the last three, Utah will be a heck of a challenge. I knew the toughest games on the schedule at the start of the year, before I seen K-State for 1 second of actual playing time, were Texas Tech and Utah. I mean, I said it, and that's still true.
Yep.
Did I expect some of these losses? Hell no, I didn't. I didn't even expect them to lose to Iowa State. And now that we see Iowa State, that's not a great loss.
You're right.
They should have beaten Baylor, folks.
Yep.
Now, going back to the Colin Klein question, I don't think he loses Baylor. I think he manages the clock. He's got enough Bill Snyder clock management in him to understand how to massage that better. But yeah, there's still, this team's still got something to play for. And if you don't expect them to give up and go 5-7, then don't you give up and just wash your hands of them. I don't expect anyone to give up. If you give up in hard times, then okay, have fun in life.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to test your fandom a little bit, test my patience a little bit, both with the team and some of you. God bless you. But it's going to be okay. It's going to be good. And I'm looking forward to another off week. I like this 3 off weeks thing. It's
nice.
I can get used to that. And then we got 2 road games to finish us up. It struck me today, and as I pulled out the parking passes, there's only 1 more home game. What a weird season this is.
Strange.
But K-State is below water right now at 4-5. But I'm confident they're going to get to 5-5 with the next game, and then we'll see what happens. And I think it'd be kind of fitting in a crappy season if they ended up in the Frisco Bowl, because I don't know if you're aware of this, Chris Kleiman's won a lot of games in the Frisco. And also I would refer to it as the Big B Bowl.
That's right.
Maybe we could rent the name for Big B, the Big B Bowl, for 1 year, because that's where he lives. Cole, put a bow on this, and I'm going to go try to find an illegal stream. That's a joke. I would never find an illegal stream of a game because ESPN sucks. Go ahead.
Hey, the ratings are going to be really good for this game, by the way. I'm excited to see what the ratings for K-State Tech were. If you did watch this game, obviously not the greatest performance by Kansas State. 43-20 is the final. But either way, as you so elegantly put it, Fitz, there is still season left to play. And I think that this group will find a way to bounce back. I'm really looking forward to seeing where they goes. You find out a lot about a person when they are faced with adversity. And we're going to find out a lot about the guys inside of that locker room right now, since, essentially the Arlington dream is dead and not where anybody wanted to be at this point in the season. But it is what it is. You got to deal with what the punches are being thrown at you, and we'll see how they respond. But I know that we do want to thank everybody so much for hanging with us tonight. A different time. I think it went pretty well. So appreciate everybody so much for tuning in. That is Fitz. I am Cole. We will have so much coverage coming to you. Basketball season is right around the corner. Hoops tip off on Tuesday. Ryan Gilbert will be all over that, as will the rest of our team. But we really appreciate everybody so much for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.